Hello, and welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour, the weekly bridge to the future of the piano tech community. I'm David Anderson.
And I'm Ethan Janney. And we're here to ask great questions, and then we'll shut up and listen to some of the authorities, experts, and most outstanding personalities in our little world of pianos.
So, put on your best set of headphones, and let's get started.
Hey everyone, sorry for a little bit of a delay. We usually start right on time, but we're having a musician on today who's willing to play for us live, and we were having technical difficulties with the sound, so we wanted to get that rolling. So we'll jump in here as quickly as possible. Just to say, if you're out there on Facebook and YouTube, thanks for joining us, and we will. We may cut out here at some point or not, but if we do, sometimes we do it intentionally about 15 minutes in, just to encourage you to jump in on the live Zoom call, which you can do. We'll add a link in the chat, which tells you how to do, which when you click it, you can join the call. So look out for that. If you want to join the Zoom call, we'll put that link in the chat now. And also, if we do stop the stream, we'll put that in right beforehand so that you know how to join us. And I will introduce our program here so you know what you're at and where you're doing today, and then we'll roll in and introduce our guest for today. This program is Piano Tech Radio Hour, and we gather here every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. This includes manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our craft, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses. It's an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And this program today, again, is called Radio Hour, Piano Tech Radio Hour. You can subscribe to just join us on Saturdays for just $16 a month. Not only do you get to join us live in the Zoom call, but you get access to our archival recordings of over, I don't know if it's over, it's just about 200 episodes now in our archive, several years worth of content. And you can join Piano Tech Radio Hour to get that live access and recording by bit.ly/join PTRH, bit.ly/join PTRH. And then just quickly before we get started, let you guys know about some other stuff we should give you a quick plug on. Make sure you check out the podcast. Go to pianotechradio.com. You can listen to audio-only episodes, both of the archives and some recent content. Go to pianotechniciansmasterclass.substack.com. So we've started a blog where we're giving you an insider peek at some of our masterclass content. This is content that's geared especially for piano technicians or experts to help them understand really how to reach the highest levels of the craft. And we're putting out blog articles about once a week that extract some information from our content in our archives and give you a little peek. And if you want to join in and get more, you can subscribe. And then finally, on March 28th, Thursday, March 28th, we have a masterclass pretty much every third Thursday. This one's like the fourth Thursday of the month. This one will be with Jason Castle on harpsichord tuning and care. So make sure you have the fundamentals of taking care of a harpsichord. We'll put the link in the chat on how to join us for that. Make sure you follow us on socials, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Look up at Piano Technicians Masterclass, and you'll find us. All right. I have a very esteemed guest sitting with me here today. I'm excited to introduce Kristhyan Benitez. And Kristhyan is a classical music pianist who won the Latin Grammy in 2021 for Best Classical Music Album. He focuses not only on playing the more traditional classical canon, but also the music of his home country of Venezuela, including its classical music and its rich, vast, and diverse tradition of folk and popular music. As a result of mestizaje, people, mixed race, which is Spanish, Indigenous, and African. He has appeared at some of the world's most prestigious stages, such as the Philharmonie Hall in Berlin, Davies Symphony Hall in San Francisco, Lincoln Center, New York, and has performances throughout Asia, Europe, South America, and the United States, as well as right here to come on Piano Tech Radio Hour. Kristhyan, welcome to the program. It's great to have you here.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for the invitation. So happy to be here.
It's a privilege, yeah. And I think we found you because you've been on the a Steinway podcast actually previously. And you're a Steinway artist officially, yeah?
Yeah, yes, I am an
Great.
Stanway artist.
Excellent. So I encourage people to check out that Steinway has started a podcast maybe in the past year or two, and they've got some interesting guests there as well, and learn more about what's going on over there. So I would love to just dive in here. We always like to, or often like to get some background on our guests. Just the origin story is often, very informational. So, tell us about your start in classical music. Did you envision becoming a professional musician or artist when you were a child? Did you get started early? Was this something that came naturally to you? Musical family? Where did this all get started?
So no musical family, but my parents were always very, they always want me to have some sort of musical instruction, education, cultural education, just like general. And my mom wanted me to be a guitar player. She said like, the guitar is easy, like to carry. Then you're gonna play with your friends. You're gonna learn some music. I remember growing up listening to zarzuela with my grandparents growing up like on Sunday brunch, but no more than that. Just like, music was just that, and especially classical music was something that it was not like easy to access for me.
Let's
But
just take a step back there. You said sarsuela?
zarzuela.
And what is this? I mean, I think you said it like maybe somebody in Venezuela would know, but I that doesn't mean anything to me. It sounds pretty, but what does that mean?
So the zarzuela is like a small opera
Okay.
uh, in Spanish. So it's or
Okay.
like the most famous composers are from Spain.
Okay.
And the novellas are always like very short stories. Usually about, there are like either like satires, like small satires about love, or like not too deep necessarily as, for example, like a Wagner opera or something like that, but they're very colorful and they exploit a lot the cultural side of the composer. Um, so they're
I
very
love this
famous.
idea, and maybe I'm underexposed in classical music, but I never thought, you have long form stories and you have short stories and poems and things like that. I love the idea of kind of like a vignette type of opera. Does that exist in other cultures? Is that common or is it under a
Yeah,
different name or something?
with the composer Poulenc, French, he did some of these like small operas, like operetta. This called also like a small and they were usually they were very revolutionary by the time, but again, they were like satire, they were like comical, they were like talking about like forbidden, themes, and in a short form. They just want to be a little bit different from, let's say, like the composers who like dedicated like 3 or 4 hours of music, of writing music, and librettos for like the big operas like Puccini, Verdi, and of course like Wagner. But they are amazing. They're like pieces, like they're beautiful jewels. And the zarzuela specifically is all in Spanish, so it's like it's very colorful. It's fun. It's easy to listen to. It's very approachable to audiences. So if you're interested in going into the opera path, I will encourage you to start with some of these like zarzuelas or like small operettas, and then you can dive into like the bigger ones later, and it's going to be a fun ride.
Wonderful. I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked, but I'm just having this wonderful imaginative vision of you. Everybody's having a Sunday brunch and listening to Sarsuelas and it feeling like it's a thing. But other people have other things, and you kind of had this thing. I want to participate in it. I want to be at the brunch. I want to have the brunch. I want to have the Sarsuela. They play them off of records, or was it something that was on the radio at the time, or
LPs. Like
LPs?
LP.
Okay, wow,
Uh,
that's awesome.
the,
All right,
the
continue.
best
Sorry. Okay, continue. Sorry. Yeah.
And I think, I got like inspiration for that. My mom, as I told you, she wanted me to be a guitar player. We went to this music school in Caracas, in my hometown. And then the principal of the school told me that I have to choose the instrument. And I was 4 years old. So my mom was like immediately saying, no, he's going to play guitar. And then she said, like, no, 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 you have to go into this room and then select the instrument that he wants. And then I saw a big, grand black piano, a Steinway it was actually. And I think it was just, it was like this small. And then I saw like the bigger, the biggest instrument in the room. And I said, like, I want to play that one. Um, my mom, of course, was horrified because she said, like, oh my God, I don't want to buy a piano now. It was supposed to be a guitar. They did some sort of like, test, like rhythmic test to see, if I have some sort of like, if I have some sort of like, not talent, but like, if I was adapted to play some sort of instrument, like rhythm and something like that. And then I had a keyboard, a very, very small keyboard. And I think it was love at first sight. Love at first sight. I never had any like fight of being a pianist with, like the piano has been my body all time. And as I always said, it's like been my first marriage.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah.
Been 30
Um,
years.
yeah,
And
that's lovely. That's lovely. It's funny because I think myself, I've had a mixed relationship with the piano, to be honest. Like I feel like I got to take lessons on it. I enjoyed it. There was a certain part of me that really enjoyed it, and I play like the Elton John and the Billy Joel. Like that was like the traditional, what do you do when you're first starting piano? Elton John, Billy Joel. Um, and then, my brother was into rock and, like the little rock and roll kind of iconic things you learn them, like the Bohemian Rhapsody things and stuff. But there was a certain point in which I was like, oh man, I wish I was cooler like the guitar player or the drummer. There was something that like made me feel like it wasn't quite right for me. But the thing for me is it's just always stuck with me no matter what. I've grown to love it and embrace it as a huge part of my life. It's become a huge part of my life. So we talked about maybe having you play a little bit. It might be fun to do that earlier than later. Are you interested in playing a little bit now, or should we hold that off for a bit?
yeah. So as you told before, I had the honor to win the Grammy in 2021. I did an album called Latin American Classics. So it's all classical music for piano made by classical composers from Latin America that are not necessarily known like worldwide. I'm very also proud because as a Stanway artist, and the album was recorded with the Stanway and Sons label. I got them their first ever in their history Grammy, and to be with Latin American music, it just gives me such joy. So I'm going to play one of the pieces that I recorded there is by Cuban composer Ernesto Lecuona, and it's called Danza de los Ñáñigos. So it's commemorating the Carnival festivities, and the Ñáñigos were this group of people that got dressed with very colorful masks during the Carnival processions.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. That was a pleasure. Yeah,
Thank you.
you've got some applause. Let me put I'll spotlight myself again.
Thank
Um, there I am. Okay. Yeah, we've got some applause I can see in the video, and yeah, it's just a wonderful tone to the piece. It feels very light and happy and joyful. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
I can
Lots of
see
great
here
feedback.
that David says that he likes music from Ernesto Nazaret,
Hmm.
Brazilian. I love Ernesto Nazaret, and my upcoming album that's coming in the fall, it will have music by Nazaret. So this is nice
Oh,
as well.
wonderful. That's really great. Yeah, and I can see we have some Latin American fans in the audience as well. Juan Alberto Schultes is here. I see. Great to have you join us today. I'm forgetting where you're at, Juan Alberto. Is it Argentina? Am I right on that? You can say in the chat where you're from. But yeah, we have a handful of Latin American fans, Chile and various places. So
Nice. Hi, Paul.
really
Hola,
fun.
hola.
Uh, and now playing the piano reminds me, this piano actually has quite a fascinating story for you as well. So tell us like where did this piano come from? Is it, from a family piano from when you were a kid, or did you buy this recently or a long time ago? And you're in New York, by the way, right?
New York, yes,
Okay,
currently.
yeah. So where this it's hard to have a piano in New York. Even for the finest of musicians, it's hard for them to have an actual, especially a grand piano. So congratulations on that.
Thank
Tell us the
you.
story of it.
So the piano is a Steinway piano from 1917, and I'm happy to be the official third owner of this jewel. I got this piano during the pandemic, actually, and I won the piano. Um, it got to me on May 2020. Um, and it was just, for me, it was a surprise. It was a miracle. I slept under the piano for 3 days in a row. This piano belonged to a Moroccan um, guy here in New York that he lived here for so long. He was the one that brought the Volkswagen brand into the United States, and then he developed like a real estate business here in the city. But he was his two passions were tennis and piano. So he had a different piano uh, in all of his like assets, like personal assets, and this was the piano that was in his apartment. His wife was an actress, Japanese descendant, but she was from Nebraska. I believe her name was Sono Otto, and she was the counterpart of some of the movies of some of Frank Sinatra's movie.
Hmm.
So they were really, really, really good friends, and he had this kind of like gathering parties at his place in New York where he invited all of these musician artists there. And this piano was played by Frank Sinatra. It was played by Leonard Bernstein. I realized that when I saw pictures of the famous people who play this piano, and then I got this on this competition. This he sadly passed away. He had cancer, but he won his piano, this piano specifically, to belong to a young pianist, someone that had potential. And then through a foundation here in New York, I got the piano. I was the lucky one to get it and to cherish it and to treasure it. And I call it, his name is Sinatra. My best friend who lives here also like was the one that came up with the name. And I also, I call it, it's a piano with a soul. Like so many beautiful artists play this, and there's a history with it, and I'll paying tribute to that, doing music and being respectful with music and taking music as a powerful tool, as a healing tool to the world. So I'm so happy to have Sinatra here with me.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's a great story, great instrument to have. And I think you mentioned to me when we were talking previously that this whole process of like winning this piano was almost kind of like confusing, right? Or it's like you sort of they had you come by and like try it out, and maybe they had a handful of people
Apparently the
do this.
piano,
Maybe you didn't even know you were in the running to win it or something, right? It was kind of like a big surprise, right?
yeah, it happened through a friend of mine, a pianist, a wonderful pianist, that took me to Victor Place. Victor was the name of, of this person that I received the piano from, and I played the piano. They told us the piano was not in a good shape, that it was not playable at all. And we went there and we played it. She recorded me while I was playing it, and then I received a call during the pandemic saying like, "Oh, you have a piano. You have to pick up the piano today." And I'm like, I don't understand, like it was that time during COVID when we didn't know if we touched something we were gonna get it, like that moment that was like, in April, March, April, like just recent.
All right.
And then I said, I'm saying, I'm sorry, like there's no way. I mean, I'm thank you, but I'm not, I don't have it. I mean, there's no one that can, pick up the piano. And then that building was closed as well, so everything was closed, as you all know. And then in May, the secretary of Victor's son that was taking care of it called me and says like the movers have the piano, they're gonna take it to our apartment in 3 hours. And then I was like freaking out because you know how buildings are in New York. My building is very, very narrow, and I was like, this is a 6'2" piano. It's 6 foot 6'2" long. And then it was like maybe it's not gonna get into the door, but it was, I think, like a miracle, literally. I think this piano was made to be for me at the end. It just went smoothly, and it happens to be here since then. And it's just amazing. It's just amazing, like those treasures that life gives you, those opportunities. And of course now you have a lot of responsibility to continue that. It's not just like getting the prize and that's it. It's now like, building up from there.
Beautiful. Yeah, what a wonderful story. Um, so tell us more about the process of deciding to pursue classical music or just music in general professionally. What was it like to sort of make that decision? How far along your path did you know this was going to be sort of your career direction at this point?
Well, it's curious because coming from Latin America, also like music is like a hobby, like, oh, you're a musician. Oh, so what else do you do? What's your profession? What's your career? What do you want to do? And as I told you, my family, they're not musicians. My parents are not musicians, but they say like if you really love music, if you really, want to do this, you have to do it good. You have to be great. You have to be great with your abilities. You have to, work hard, discipline, to be very constant, you know, um, and at some point, because of that mentality of like, oh, I need to do something else. I wanted to become a doctor. That was one of the professions that I always wanted to be. It's interesting because I wanted to be either a plastic surgeon, but like a reconstructive surgery, or a pediatrician. Completely like opposite. I don't know why. Um, and then I said like, okay, I'm gonna be maybe like the first pianist doctor, there that are gonna do both things good, because I always wanted to do, I always have good grades. I'm very responsible. I will want to be, like determined with what I want. And the day of the admission test in Venezuela was the same day that I won a prize to play in Berlin with the Berlin Symphonic Orchestra and record my first album. It was exactly the same day. And my parents told me like, well, you have to decide. And then it was so hard for me. I was 17 at the time. And I said like, please just choose for me. I do whatever you want. And they say, no, you have to choose. Whatever you choose, it's gonna be, you know, the right thing for you. And you are the one making your choice. You're an adult now, like. And I chose, to go to Berlin. I don't regret it at all. Um, I read a lot about medicine, like medical, like diaries, like newspapers and stuff. Like I'm obsessed with it still. But I love what I do. I adore what I do. Like playing piano. Um, it's it's my 200% of my self being. It's like it's what makes me who I am. It's my way of being, authentical, of being vulnerable as well. Um, and music in general. I started with classical music, and I adore classical music, and I think I will be doing classical music all my life. But just music in general, it just has a special power. Whatever path you take, um, there are a lot of things to discover about the world of music and about yourself as well through music.
That's wonderful. I have to address the elephant in the room here, which is actually a cat that seems to be wanting to share the stage with me.
Yeah.
And the piano technicians here will find this interesting. This is the shop cat in Dean Rayburn's piano shop. Dean is someone who makes piano actions in Michigan, but he makes some of the best piano actions in the world. If you ever need a piano action, but we just did a little master class with him. He has these cats to keep the mice out of the shop. They said, "Oh, this one's gonna get friendly." Yeah, trying to take over the show. Um, but yes, that's really wonderful, and that you can have that much of a connection with what you're doing, and also just appreciate the choice that you made. Because that doesn't always happen. When you make those big decisions, you might say, "Oh, listen, I have to turn back and do something else." And
I'm
luckily, it's
think I'm fortunate. I feel like I'm lucky because it's not easy, as you all know, like any career, it's not easy. But I'm lucky because I feel that, if I ever have, even like in the worst moment or like the most difficult moment, like music has been there for me, like to cure me, in some way, or to just give me some sort of like patience. It's like, so it's been healing for me. So
mm,
I never had like a fight with it. I
mm,
understand like the industry and there are injustices in everything, not only in music, in a lot of different, like fields. But music for me has been a healing tool for sure. For
that's
sure.
wonderful. Yeah, we will have another interview that will air here soon, maybe in the next few weeks, that I just recorded yesterday. But similarly interesting topic came up of just music being this force that is healing for people and important for their soul, really. And you know, it's people are watching Netflix a lot more than practicing the piano sometimes these days, right? And I think, or whatever instrument it is, and I think it's kind of one of those things, you don't know what you're missing until you access it. And so hopefully, programs like this, when people tune in, if you're here and you love piano and you know the power of music, feel free to share this with a friend, family member, or whatever. Just learning the basics. I can tell it's hard for me to remember the time where I only knew a little scale, a couple notes here and there. But I feel like you can get just as much enrichment, especially from that sort of healing emotional level, whether you're playing just a couple notes and you're just getting started, or playing some grand piece. It's pretty amazing. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
So tell me about the process here now. You grew up in Venezuela, that's your home. It's a big part of your cultural history. And in order to kind of grow and change as a musician, you've come to the States. You studied in the States. Is that what happened? You came here to study at a university?
Yeah, I won a scholarship to go to Manhattan School of Music here in New York.
Hmm.
uh, for my bachelor's. And then it was interesting because, as I told you, and I think that was maybe like the Latin American chip that I have of like, sometimes like I always love music, but maybe that inside of like, oh, you should do something, something else.
Hmm.
Um, I went to high school in Venezuela and it was all about science. And I think like science and music, they get along very well. I love mathematics and like biology, chemistry, things like that. And when I went to school here, um, I all my electives were like math and like political science and like like things like that. So I ended up doing a minor in economics.
Hmm.
just fun. I was okay. I don't want to necessarily take only like philosophy or like all of the humanities. I want to do something else because I was growing up with that, and I end up having that. So it was an amazing opportunity because I had the chance to study at Columbia, doing those classes. So it was
Oh
like
yeah,
Manhattan School of Music.
great school.
Then
Is
I
Manhattan School of Music somehow affiliated with Columbia, or could you have done it at other local institutions? Or
but they have this like joint program, like a
sure,
double degree program.
okay.
Uh, and then I moved to Paris, to Europe. I studied in Paris. I didn't live in Paris all the time for my master's. I studied with Philippe Antremont, who was like a hero of mine, conductor and pianist. I was there for 2 years. It was an amazing experience. And then I decided to came back to the States. I lived in Boston for 8 years. I went to Berkeley, Boston Conservatory at Berkeley.
Hmm.
Um, and after that, I decided to move back to New York. I always dreamt to like live here since I was a little kid. New York was, the place to be. I remember my grandparent always telling me like, you should live there at that. If you want to play piano, that's the place where you want to play piano. Like. So I'm here now, and it's been like a journey. All the teachers, like especially music, you have this teacher through your career, like depending on the degree that you're doing, of course, that is kind of like your guide, your mentor. And all of the mentors that I had through the years, they gave me a lot of important tools and a lot of important ways of seeing music that made me shape kind of like my own way of looking at music right now. And then all of those experiences are so enrichment to me, like they're just nurturing. And
Hmm.
I thank all of that, like the goods and not and the bad. Everything, shaped the way you are right now. And for me, again, I'm to be able to travel to different countries and learn from different cultures. And right now, at this moment, I'm more like focused on, like, just like promoting a little bit more music from Latin America. So from more of being a Venezuelan, I would say that I'm a Latin American, just
Hmm.
promoting our culture,
Hmm.
and the different colors of music that we have. Oh, they're showing some albums there.
David's sharing some CDs. What are we looking at there, David? Let's take a look here. We've got can you recognize this? It's getting a little blurry here. Paul. Gotta remember. Can you see
Latin
those?
America. Yeah, I can see that.
Oh,
Okay.
Plano. Yeah. There's Nazareth.
Nazareth,
Ernesto
that's the one.
Nazareth.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Very cool.
Oh, that's Thomas Tirino playing. Brazil.
Brasil,
Nice.
Marcelo Bratky,
Oh, gosh,
Charchuk
Cervantes.
Cervantes.
Like Cuban.
Oh,
That's
let's get the whole collection.
wow, that's amazing.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Thanks for sharing, David. That's cool. Um, uh, so now you've got a playlist. If you haven't explored Latin music, David just gave you a playlist. Um, that's really wonderful. And I think you're also, in terms of what you're trying to do with music, you're trying to find ways to, um, give back, I guess you could call it, sort of do some charitable things. What kind of stuff have you been involved in there, and how's it evolving?
Well, I mean, first of all, I teach, and I think,
Hmm.
it's not only to receive the applause from the audience when you play a concert. That, of course,
Hmm.
that's super rewarding and that's amazing, and that,
Hmm.
gives you a lot, but then what's next? I think it's very important to just plant that seed, to the younger generation. So for me, teaching is a very important part of my development as an artist.
Hmm.
And then also, helping as many people as I can, in my niche, So for example, like I've been like playing concerts in Venezuela. I went back, playing these concerts with a organization that is helping the musicians of the orchestra that I play with getting the right salaries, especially with the situation that the country is living at the moment, which is like horrendous. Um, and as well as during COVID as well, I worked with an organization in Mexico it was a Venezuelan Mexican organization there that we did some concerts in order to get medical supplies to public hospitals in Venezuela because they're not having any medical supplies there, and not necessarily in the capital, but like in different in other states where they have less access to it, and always having that flag of the healing power of music. That's what I do, and that's what I can help with, and it is important. It really gives you a multi-dimensional way of seeing life, and it's not just like again, it's not just like playing or like composing or creating. It's just like what do you give to humanity, what do you give to people? And then at the end, I rather be remembered in history as someone that gave me this lesson, and then maybe I'm not a musician now, but he taught me this and this and that, and then he changed my life in that way. Just one person, it doesn't matter, but that for me is important rather than just be, I don't know, just like a superstar. Although if I become one, then yeah, I'm happy
Already
to
a
as well.
superstar as far as I can
You
tell.
have to give because what I have and what I've been through all my life, it's been a gift
Mhm.
from wherever, so I have to give that back as well.
Yeah. Yes, I love it. And I think you encounter various people in various situations. I think we're going to be bringing more people on Radio Hour that are sharing their kind of passion for music. As I mentioned, a guest that I interviewed a pre-recording for will be on, which I think will be very exciting. But yeah, I think this is really great to share your pure, your joy, your enthusiasm for the music is very genuine and it's very contagious. So it's really great to be speaking with you about it. Um, in terms of, you mentioned you're teaching, I guess you're doing some touring in you're making a living as a musician, right? And tell us a little bit about what that's like these days, right? Because it's different to approach making a living as a musician, today than it was like 50 years ago or 100 or whatever, what's it like? How do you make it work and how's it coming together?
Telling you, and also has been different like since like 5 years ago. Like
Sure.
I think like went through the pandemic, like everything completely like changed, like in every way, like the way that people go to concerts, the people, how people want to get information, how people want to get involved in a concert, like go to listen to music. It was very hard to get back to the stage, because audiences were not comfortable going back. And I remember the first recital that I played after the pandemic, like in person, for me it was shocking. I was in panic and I didn't know why. I was like, why? I mean, I've been doing this all my life and I love doing it. Like I don't have like any like stage fright or anything like that. Like I never had that, but I had that in that moment. Um, it has been challenging. I think there's a lot of competition, but there are always been competition. And again, I don't think people take seriously what we do as musicians. You have to invest hours and hours and hours practicing. And when you say like, "Oh, I have to practice," and people say like, "Why do you have to practice? You already play." Like, no, it doesn't work like that. It's like an athlete,
Hmm.
and that's part of the work. Sometimes you don't get compensated for that, like you don't get a reward necessarily for that, so it's take it for granted a little bit. And the other thing that is important is that even if you're prepared, even if you are 400 prepared, there's never a guarantee that the day of the concert is going to be amazing or no. There's always something. We're human beings.
Hmm.
There are things, you go to a competition and then like the judges maybe they're not in sync with what you're doing, like it's so subjective. So also living with that frustration, gives you a lot of strength, like if you know how to like handle it, because it is a lot. And again, when you're a freelancer as well, um there's another story, like okay, so maybe one month you have 4 months, or maybe the next month you don't. Um, but you have to try to find ways. I think we as musicians, as an artist, we are creative. Uh, I don't believe that we only have one talent. I think we have many talents, but you have to discover what are those talents, and if it's within what you do, like even better, right? But then just try to like amplify the spectrum of what you do in order to don't feel that kind of like hole when you don't have a concert, when you don't have a performance. You're always try to keep being active, like
Hmm.
either like composing, creating, collaborating. I believe a lot in collaboration. I think like maybe 50 years ago it was not the same way that it is right now, or at least the way that I believe. I think if I have uh an opportunity to grow, and if I can help a colleague to grow with me, I'll do that in collaboration. Sometimes, when you see like famous pianists in the past, they were like, oh, this pianist was this, but he was not friend of your famous pianist. And I think now that has been changing. This and in music in general, you also see like in commercial music, all of this featuring, like these different artists from like different like genres, like doing
Right.
things together. And I found that amazing, because that's what it is. It's about creating this nurturing connection to expand even more. I'm a classical pianist. I'm a musician. I'm an artist. I want to create. I want to do things that maybe they're not part of the classical world necessarily. Um, and I want to be connected, and I want to get, nurtured by other artists doing different things. I listen to everything. I have to
Yeah.
listen to. It's not just like, oh, I have to listen to only classical music because I play classical music. I adore classical music, but I need to be nurtured from rock, pop, like everything that is going on right now. You have to be current in that way. So when you want to do your craft, and when you want to compose, for example, using, your own voice, you have all of this, stimulation from like all of the other fields. So it's a
Yeah.
roller motion, But I
Yeah.
guess best way to say is like to just being, keep active and have faith and just keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate what you were saying about, collaborations. Of course, just from the perspective of collaboration being a great approach to life. But also as you mentioned it, you mentioned all these different genres that you have a connection with, and I remember realizing, when at least for me, when I was like a kid in high school, it was there were these different genres, and oh, did you play classical? Did you? But I remember being a jazz musician, and there being a thing where it's like there's the classical musicians, there's the jazz musicians, and they do their thing, which is better, and there was this whole thing that would happen. I think that's fading away, just generally, but I realized as a musician, these genres that I became to identify as a listener, rock or pop or jazz, when you start making music, especially, and it starts coming out and you don't even know what to call it, you realize that the genres are really only there for the listeners to just help add some order to it so they can find things that they like. But the musicians generally are just expressing themselves, and you have to maybe pick a genre to help promote whatever you're doing. But it's a very unnatural process for the musician to say, what genre is this? It doesn't really make sense.
And like, and if you like, for example, like if you start in classical music and then you decide that you want to go to a different path, and then people say like, what happened? It's okay. Like it's part of the process. That doesn't mean that they are, like your classical part is not going to be there anymore. And also now that you're talking about jazz, it's interesting because I'm developing a project right now. There is a concert with a classical pianist and a jazz pianist together,
Hmm.
some sort of like a conversation, kind of like a, interaction between the one and the other, and then at the
Mhm.
same time you find so much like similarities. So it's just a prejudice. It's just a social prejudice at the end. And and there are a lot of, for example, like jazz pianists that they come from the classical world, but they decide they like this more, and it's okay, it's fine. Like
Mhm.
And there's still going to be people that you can look up to. It's not like, oh, no, you play whatever, then I don't. No, no, no. You have to see what the artist is doing. And it's just a creative process.
So,
And
so on this topic of sort of cross-disciplinary and self-expression and so forth, so you're developing something which you're calling Benitez, right? That you're wanting to kind of set yourself apart in different types of creation. So explain what that means, Benitez, to you and how that's evolving.
So Benitez is just me being me. It's just my last name. And it's just a blank canvas of things that I like doing, composing in different genres, exploring, experimenting with sound, with acoustics, and creating, coming from where I come from. So I come from the classical world, I come from the acoustic piano. So always taking that and then expanding my universe, my musical universe a little bit more. So you will find music that is like suitable for films, music for like commercials, music that is a little bit more like electronic, but always, keeping my essence. I think that when you do something with purpose and you know why are you doing it, um, and you have some sort of like a line through it, then it makes total sense. Sometimes like people start like, like creating things and they don't know, I need to do this because the algorithm, because social media, because this and that, then it's not genuine. But when you are convinced, and you're feeling yourself, I think that's like the most important thing. So Benitez is a little bit more of that. So it's like an alter ego artist. Um, it's non-classical. Everything classical will still be named Kristhyan Benitez, and then Benitez,
Mhm.
expanding a little bit more of that world. So I encourage you to just listen a little bit. You don't have to like everything, but it's music at the end. So, it's nice.
Yeah, it's a great concept. Are you familiar with Rick Rubin, the producer? Yeah. Do you listen to he has podcasts and stuff? Yeah. 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 That's very much, that's what I like about his approach. He talks